Okay, I guess I'm done. That pretty much summed up everything I had to say. So I guess there's nothing left. But let's try. So I want to first thank my Uncle Graziano for not only coming today, coming all the way from Florida with my Aunt Lucille, of course, but I want to thank him also for playing not once but twice for me. It's an honor to be standing here above, in front of them. That pew alone, with my Uncle Graziano, my Aunt Lucille, my Aunt Kathy, my Uncle Dewey, there's almost 200 years of Adventism just in one pew. So I come from a really long line of very firm believers in our blessed hope. And if there's one thing they taught me, is that if you're lost, there's always a home for you to return to. I also want to welcome my family down in Florida. As always, I already got 3 calls from them. So they had to make sure that I knew they were online, and I knew that I had to acknowledge them and let them know that I know they're there. So hello down in Florida. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for supporting me. I hope I do you guys proud. And I hope that everyone here, whether you're sitting in the pews or online or on Zoom or the YouTube link, that everyone who hears my voice today gets the blessing. So let's start. Have you ever been lost? Have you ever looked in the mirror and not recognized the person looking back at you? Have you ever wondered, what am I doing with my life? Or better yet, how did I let things go this far? Before I say anything else, I need to qualify what I meant by go this far. Before any of you, don't think that this pertains to even you. Of course, there are the obvious examples of like drugs, alcohol, various other vices that according to society are considered bad. But what about the more subtle, like having health issues, such as being overweight, having high blood sugar, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure? How about being self-indulgent, overly critical, judgmental, or having a short temper? Then there are the overly pious who, let's face it, are usually the worst of all because they are trying to cover up their own shortcomings by putting on the biggest show of all. Need some more? How about the gossipers, the envious, the never satisfied with all the blessings they have because they're too busy comparing themselves to others to ever appreciate what God has given them? These are but a few examples, but I think I made my point. Basically, you can insert your own personal struggle in there, and I'm sure it will fit perfectly. Having clarified that, let's continue. If we're being honest, I'm pretty sure that all of us have had these very same thoughts and concerns at one time or another. And it would not surprise me if some of us felt like this as recently as today. Well, congratulations, you're human, and you're not alone. What do I mean? If you're having a health issue, you go to a doctor, and if it's really bad, you go to a hospital because you realize that when your life is in danger and you need more help than you were able to do for yourself, you go to where you know you'll find it, and there is no shame in that. It should be the same with a crisis of faith. I've been asked several times, why do I go to church? And here is my simple answer. I go to church because for me, it is the time I have designated specifically for God. I'm sure, like the rest of us, we have busy lives and it's easy to get lost in the here and now. But for me, the idea that there is a special time each week when I can tune life out and I can focus on my relationship with God. I, like most, feel lost and out of control more often than I like to admit. And by the simple act of segregating this time, I allow God to take control, at least for a little while, and in that I'm found, and there I find comfort. There are those that say, I don't need to go to church. It's just a building. I pray, and I can worship anytime or any place. My answer to them is great, if that works for you. But do you really? Just because you can, in reality, how often do you? But let's come back to that in a little bit. I first got my driver's license in 1991, which is just over 34 years ago. Uncle Dewey, when did you get your driver's license? 1961. That's another 30 years on test, so 64 years you've been driving. And when you started driving, did they have GPS? Was there GPS on your app back in 1961? So when you went someplace that you didn't know where you were going, what'd you do? Use the map. Okay. Let's talk a little more about maps. When I was younger, I learned a skill called orienteering. And does anyone here know what that is? In a nutshell, it's basically learning how to use a compass in order to read a map correctly, or how to turn a map in order to understand specifically what is around you in every direction. Nowadays, we open our cell phones and go to our GPS app, and we just go. But in the end, if you had a map in those days and a compass, you could virtually find your way anywhere, whether on a road or even in the woods. However, maps were created by imperfect people who, by definition, were lost while they were compiling these first maps, according to their experiences. I can think of another book that was compiled by a bunch of lost people who wrote of their experiences that we still use today to help find ourselves. And if you haven't guessed yet, I'm referring to the Bible. I'm going to focus on Luke chapter 15 because in this chapter, Jesus perfectly describes in parable form all the different ways a person can be lost. We'll start with Luke 15, 1-7, the parable of the lost sheep. Then all the tax collectors and the sinners draw near to him to hear him, and the Pharisees and scribes complained, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them, saying, "What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance." In this parable, the sheep was lost as a result of some bad choices, whether they started with good intentions or not. This is the person who easily loses their way because they stray too far and finds himself in unfamiliar territory, either physically or spiritually. We'll move on. Luke 15, 8-10, the parable of the lost coin. Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls her friends and neighbors together, saying, "Rejoice with me, for I have found the piece which I lost." Likewise, I say to you, there is joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. In this parable, the coin, being an inanimate object, does not know that it is lost, much the same as the person who doesn't care and goes through life doing whatever suits them in the moment, regardless of the consequences. This is the person who is lost by their own self-imposed ignorance. On to Luke 15, 10-24, the parable of the lost son, part 1. Then he said, a certain man who had 2 sons, the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me." So he divided to them his livelihood. And not many days after, the young son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into the fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And he arose, and he came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him, and had compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring out the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For this my son was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry. In this parable, the son is the person who maybe grew up in the church, or had a good upbringing and decided to rebel and do the complete opposite. This person was completely unprepared to deal with the consequences of his actions and finds himself lost and in ruin by his own actions and poor choices. In other words, he knew better, but because of his rebellious nature, did it anyway. Now, Luke 15:28-32 is also part of the lost son's parable, but I call it part 2, the good son. Or was he? Now his oldest son was in the field, and as he came and drew near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, Your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out, pleading with him. So he answered and said to his father, Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I may make merry with my friends? But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you killed the fatted calf for him? And he said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. And it was right that we should make merry and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive again, and was lost and is found. This to me is the saddest example of a lost soul of all the others, because this son represents the church members and all of their false piety. These are the people who believe themselves better than the average sinner and feel no compassion for their fellow sinners. What makes them so sad is because these are the ones who think themselves to be exalted in heaven. But as it says in Matthew 7:21-23, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter my kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness. Which one or more of these parables describes you and your experience? Is it ever possible to actually be lost nowadays? What does it mean to be lost? So as always, I like to go to the definition I find in the dictionary, and they read as follows. According to Oxford, denoting something that has been taken away or cannot be recovered, If only I could recapture my lost youth. Or similar, bygone, past, former, one time, previous, old, olden, departed, vanished, forgotten, unremembered, unrecalled, consigned to oblivion, extinct, dead, lost and gone, lost in time, out of date, outmoded, passé. Ooh, it's a $2 word. Of time or opportunity not used advantageously or wasted. The decision meant a lost opportunity to create something great. Also, there's missed, forfeited, neglected, wasted, squandered, dissipated, gone by the board, down the drain, having perished or been destroyed. A memorial to a lost crew member. Or extinct, died out, defunct, vanished, gone, perished, destroyed, wiped out, ruined, wrecked, crushed, finished, demolished, obliterated, effaced, exterminated, eradicated, annihilated, extirpated of a game or contest in which a defeat has been sustained and unable to find one's way, not knowing one's whereabouts. Help! We're lost. Similar is stray, astray, off course, off track, off the right track, disoriented, disorientated, having lost one's bearings, adrift, going around in circles at sea, unable to be found. Of a person very confused or insecure in great difficulties. She stood there feeling completely lost. Did you realize there were so many words and sentiments that just give for one word, being lost? All that. Now, I gave some definitions for lost. How many times did you identify with any one or more of these? I know I definitely have many times felt absolutely lost, but I have been extremely fortunate because no matter how far I have strayed, I know that I always have a fixed point, and that is Jesus. It has been my constant faith in Jesus that has been my guide, like true north on a compass, in the same way that by knowing which way north is can help you find your bearing anywhere on this planet, having faith in Jesus can point you back. But on the flip side of this thought, even if you know the right direction to go, it is still up to each of us to choose to move toward it, even though we are usually more compelled to go in the opposite direction. I'm going to burst a few bubbles by proclaiming that every one of us here and everyone we know are all lost souls. Even the best of us, especially church members, of course, myself included, and even ministers. But that doesn't have to mean all hope is lost, because but for the grace of God go I. This was a phrase which is often attributed to John Bradford, a 16th century English reformer who reportedly said it while watching criminals being led to execution. It expresses humility and acknowledges that our own good fortune is due to God's grace rather than personal merit. But getting back to my earlier point of why I come to church, for me, the church is like a lighthouse that is on a hill, and much like that lighthouse, it is the light signaling a warning to the dangers below. The church shines like that lighthouse, signaling to the dangers below. The church shines the light of Jesus, which helps us to navigate through the dangers of life. There's a lighthouse on the hillside that overlooks life's sea, and the light that shines and dwells in light was told a great saying by a very wise person who I love and have great admiration for. And although she may not have coined this particular phrase, it sums up exactly why church is so important. Church is a hospital for all sinners and not a rest home for the saved. Let it be our prayer that, like the people who crave physical healing in a hospital, we sinners receive spiritual healing that only comes from the grace of God and the mercy of Jesus Christ, who died for our sins. So we'll stand for our closing hymn.